kind of behind the scenes thing. And like I said, on many of these occasions, I am recording these episodes and then putting them live out on, I'm putting them out on iTunes and Stitcher and everywhere else, Google Play, you listen. So if you are listening to these on other platforms other than Facebook, make sure that you're liking the Flip Talk podcast with Don Costa page, because that's eventually where we're going to be broadcasting all of these shows. And then make sure you follow me on Instagram at The Real Don Costa. If you are interested in a high level mastermind, I got to plug beinthisroom.com and make sure that you go there. I am looking to build beasts, right? A lot of masterminds are looking to attract the beast in the industry. And while by all means, I am definitely interested in having the beast in the industry come and join our mastermind. The whole point of putting this mastermind together is because I want to build the beast in the industry. So if you're interested in being part of a community that's going the same direction as you and want to accomplish the same things you want to accomplish, go to beinthisroom.com. Today, I have Dan Schwartz with me, the CEO and founder of InvestorFuse. How are you doing, buddy?
I'm doing amazingly well, man. Thanks for having me on.
I appreciate you being on. So I think we're gonna have a cool conversation today because we're both kind of in line with the idea of running a real business and having the right systems and processes and all that really cool stuff. So before we get into kind of the gist of what you do now, how did you get into the real estate investing industry? Kind of fill us in on your background and who you are and what you're about.
For sure. So I come to you with different perspectives that are shedding light on the real estate investing side of things. So when I first got out of school back in 2010, I had a marketing degree from the Smith School of Business at University of Maryland, go Terps. I essentially decided not to get a real job. Like the day after graduation, I was like combing through Craigslist looking for jobs. And in that moment, I decided, you know what? I grew up seeing my father work his ass off, 12-hour days and work in the corporate life. And I decided in that moment that why go through a career where my income is capped when I can just figure this out on my own and have an unlimited, no cap to my income. And that's led to me reading Rich Dad Poor Dad and 4 Hour Work Week and all these like seminal books that incepted the idea of entrepreneurship and real estate into my brain. And I discovered wholesaling, and within like 6 months or so, ended up doing my first deal wholesaling. This is in Baltimore, Maryland. While I was doing this and learning how to do this business and scaling it with I had a business partner, another young guy that graduated from University of Maryland. I was touring full time in a funk band called Pigeons Playing Ping Pong. You can Google them. They still play to this day. I'm no longer in the band because I'm full time running InvestorFuse now. But it forced me to get really good at systems, understanding how to build structures for other people to do their job really well inside my wholesaling business, because I was never at home. I was never able to go to the properties. I was never able to take calls, really never able to do anything. But I understood just out of stubbornness and laziness that I can still figure out how to make this work given the technology of the time. At that time, the technology was Podio. And I got really good at just creating a process for handling leads and tracking everything and going, tracking your appointments and your showings and just the whole process of doing a wholesale deal. I got good at using Podio, and other people wanted my help. And that, fast forward 5 years, turned into InvestorFuse, which is the company I run now, which is a software that helps you manage your acquisitions in a really simplified, streamlined way, so that no leads falling through the cracks, and you have a process in place when a new lead comes in. You're not just like scurrying around doing random stuff. Like you're following a process, and you're taking that thing through to closing and automating your follow-up in the process. That's what InvestorFuse does now. And we also happen to help our members just systemize their whole business from A to Z, from scaling a team to just being a successful entrepreneur, which is really where my passion is. I'm sure you've heard this before, but like I'm not like obsessed with houses and real estate. I'm obsessed with entrepreneurship as like the forcing function for personal growth, and real estate happens to be the vehicle for that. And so I kind of have a software CEO mindset where I'm like, I like to build a business that's an asset that one day I'll be able to sell And I also have the experience of doing several hundred wholesale deals and owning a bunch of rental properties and scaling that up. So those two mindsets combined make me obsessed with like, how do you build your wholesaling and investing business into a real asset? And that's what I like to talk about.
That's cool. And what's cool about something you just said is we both, I think, have again are in alignment in the fact that we're entrepreneurs first. I always say real estate's my widget, right? Real estate's that widget that
Yeah.
I'm pumping off the whatever the line, right? So
Yeah.
So I want to stay on something that you said about, okay, you're in a band, you couldn't go out there and run the business necessarily day to day, you couldn't go on appointments. A lot of people ask, when's a good time to quit their full-time job, or how can you get into real estate investing with a full-time job, and or I got this and that going on, and how do I do it? What would you say are some key components to success in starting to get into real estate investing or running a real estate investing when you have other things going on and you cannot function day to day? Give me like the top 3 or 4 like things that you would do first to set your business up in a manner that would allow you to be able to start to build momentum without having to be in the weeds.
Yeah. So if I was doing a full-time job and dipping my feet in the water wholesaling, here's the conditions that I would leave my full-time job. 1, I've done a deal and I know that I have the capacity to complete a transaction. That's the first thing. So oftentimes you're just sort of doing brute force to get that first deal, right? You're doing the driving for dollars, you're sending out the postcards with whatever budget you have to make sure that you're talking to sellers as much as possible after hours and before work and sometimes on lunch break, however you can get that initial experience to get that first transaction done. Once you've done that, then you will reinvest the profit into that to create volume in terms of lead generation volume. So all of that profit is going to go back into your business to generate more leads. And it doesn't make sense to leave your job if you don't have the volume, recurring volume of opportunities coming in across your desk to warrant a full-time wholesaler. Like a lot of folks that we work with, they wonder when a good time to hire an acquisitions person is. The best time is when it starts to hurt because you don't have enough time to go on these appointments anymore, because you have a consistency of deal flow. So you need consistency of deal flow to exit your full job and then know that you have some income and opportunities coming in. So you want to just reinvest into generating opportunities. And while you're doing that, I would also hire a lead manager, because when you're doing your full-time job, someone else needs to be qualifying and teeing up all these opportunities for you to go and lock the deals up. So that's the first thing. The first person I would hire is a lead manager. You can use a done-for-you service like a leadmanagers.com type of thing, where you just hire a VA to take those incoming calls. You eventually want to have someone in-house doing this. Like, I don't recommend scaling to $1 million with like a Filipino VA talking to all your leads. That's just to get your time back. So you need to, it's a process of trading off time for money during this transition period. You need to get your time back. So you need to hire a lead manager and or a done for you service to answer the phones. And, once you have reinvested some of the profits back into your business and you're doing more direct mail, or you have just more inbound coming in, then at that point, it makes sense for you to leave your job so you can just full-time go on appointments and close deals. Then it's just the process of continuing to reinvest and scaling your team and documenting all the work that you're doing so that you feel more comfortable letting go of some of the stuff that you're doing for someone else to focus on that full-time. And then really growing your business is just the process of specialization, like thinking about your operation as an assembly line, and making sure that like at every station in the assembly line, there's one person that's really good at the one thing, and you're just overseeing the factory floor at that point. But it's definitely a challenging position to be in when you're part-time and going full-time. But when you kind of come with it with this perspective and with that end goal in mind of eventually having specialized roles on your team, you'll start to sort of see how the big picture will unfold as you start to do those transactions. And really, it's just taking the leap of faith and understanding that entrepreneurship is accessible to you, it's accessible to all of us. There's more information than you could possibly ever need around doing deals. But really the thing that is going to be your biggest challenge is understanding how to run a business and not necessarily just learning how to do a deal. So that's where the challenge is. And that's really your big opportunity is committing to entrepreneurship, not just that next deal.
Right. So I definitely want to, that's a place where I want to go to, is running a real business, right? Because that's one of my passions and frustrations and everything else with my growth as an investor. So,
Yep.
But before I get there, I know you worked through the years with a lot of high level investors. Give me like the top 3 biggest mistakes you see investors make in their business. Like what are the biggest mistakes they make that hold them back?
The biggest mistakes that people make are inconsistency.
Okay. Agreed.
So everybody asks me like what the secret sauce for marketing is. Consistency.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't matter what tool you're using,
and follow
as
up.
long as you're and follow up.
And follow
That's
up.
part of it. Doesn't matter what tool you're using, as long as you're using it consistently or
Right.
having someone else use it consistently.
Mm-hmm.
So analysis paralysis and shiny object syndrome is going to take down 90% of the new entrants to this space.
Mm-hmm.
It's sort of like the devil on your shoulder, if you will. All these other strategies and tools. The angel on your shoulder is just discipline.
Mm-hmm.
And understanding that consistency is what gets you deals, and then translating that consistency onto team members by building systems for them to be really good at their job is what it takes to automate your discipline, if you will. So that's the biggest mistake I see, is just like people just give up too soon. Oftentimes people will assume that their marketing strategy is the wrong strategy, when in reality, it's just they're not doing it enough.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Kind of building the momentum. Yeah, I agree.
So honestly, that's it. Like that's the single biggest killer of businesses, is just lack of consistency.
Yeah, I'm going to agree with you there for sure. And then not sticking something out and then the shiny object thing. Cause I don't even want to admit how much money I wasted just in the last year on new marketing, this or that, or person that didn't work out. Like, and you know, I'm doing it more so to like prove the theory if it works or not, you know, because I'm seeing it out there and it's a shiny object and people are chasing it. And, you know, I'll throw a little money at it and realize that it's just a black hole. So there are tried and true things in this business that work day in and day out, as long as they're implemented properly. And the fundamentals always seem to stay the same. For sure. So what are some of the things that you see people do? And I'm sure the answer is gonna be kind of the same, but that really make them successful? I know consistency is obviously one of them, but what's another, I would say, something that somebody has that makes them really successful in this game, in this business?
APIs. Okay. So the
key
serious
indicators,
serious business owners track everything.
Right.
And when you're first starting out, this feels like a chore, feels like it's homework, feels like it's not like going to make you any money by tracking your results, because all you need is you just want to talk to anyone that's motivated. However, the discipline of tracking, which a lot of this can be automated through tools like InvestorFuse or whatever system you're using, combined into something that can give you reports of how many leads came in, how many turned into appointments, how many of those appointments turned into closed deals, and then specifically like what your return on investment has been. You need to be able to tell me how much it costs to generate a contract. And the most successful entrepreneurs in this game can all tell me exactly how much it costs for them to get a deal, because they have it all tracked leading up to that point. And when you get your business down to, you know exactly when you spend $1, how many dollars are going to come out of that, then you have a true economic machine.
Right.
And you can't get to that unless you actually document and track your numbers. And in the process of doing that, you actually start to uncover patterns in your execution. Maybe I'm not closing enough deals. Maybe my current marketing strategies are just a waste of money. Maybe there's one marketing strategy that's making me more money than other strategies. Maybe my leads aren't qualified enough. Maybe my lead qualifier is not doing a good job. Zoom in on that, figure out where the bottlenecks are, improve that process. And you can't really do this using your intuition in a systematic way. So numbers take the guesswork out of growing your business. And numbers don't lie. What you end up measuring, you can actually go in and like pick it apart, improve it, and then track it against how it performed the week before to see if it's going up or down. And if you do this and become disciplined about that, then all of a sudden you'll have this golden number of, I spent $1 and I'm making $5 in return. And now at that point, this is when people say scale, it just means like now you can spend more money and increase the volume, and hopefully other areas of your business won't break, but it usually happens as you increase your volume, then you're going to have people problems. And then once you staff up to be able to handle that volume, now you don't have enough leads. So then you scale your leads up, and it's just like this constant push and pull of scale, which forces you as the business owner to take a higher and higher perspective each time.
Right.
So that's sort of the patterns that I've seen the most successful wholesalers. They all swear by their dashboards. Like Nick, I don't know if you know him. He's a good friend of mine here in Austin, Texas. He does virtual wholesaling.
You cut out. What was the name? I apologize.
Nick Perry.
Nick Perry. Okay. Yep. Know him very well.
Yep. He does virtual wholesaling across the nation from his office here in Austin. He's got 6 or 7 acquisitions people just on the phone all day, and they're looking up at their dashboard. They have like a TV screen that shows the specific metrics for each acquisitions person. And every time they get a deal, it shows who got the deal. So everybody can kind of compete with each other. It shows how many incoming leads there are to qualify. So they can see like what the pipeline looks like, how much money is coming in over the next few weeks. So people can see a pulse of the whole business. Creates this environment where everybody feels like they're working towards something. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, knowing your numbers is definitely the one of the biggest aspects of success. One of my KPIs in my business is how much does an employee cost me and how many dollars do they touch in the organization. So I know who my profit centers are in the organization. There are employees that are cost centers and there are employees that are profit centers, and maybe a lead manager and acquisitions manager just about touch the same dollar, but you can still see, who had the hand in that dollar that you made. The other thing that I want to throw out there that I think a lot of people they leave like this stone unturned, but knowing your numbers, there's a lot of diminishing returns. So knowing your numbers helps you throw money at things to grow your business, but it also tells you when to stop throwing money at things.
Yeah.
Because there's a point in your market where it doesn't matter how much more money you throw at it, it stops yielding the return. One of the things that knowing my numbers showed me in my business was I was mailing a certain list too often. Mm-hmm. And I was hitting it too many times, and that extra touch, I was just throwing money away. And so that's the other thing that people discount is, okay, yes, knowing your numbers is going to help you make more money, but it's also going to help you stop spending money that's not yielding results.
Mm-hmm. I love that. You need to have like a stop loss on your diminishing returns. And at that point, maybe it's time to expand into another market or launch a new business or a new strategy or come up with some new crazy marketing scheme.
Right.
But when your time is freed up to like think strategically like that, then you can overcome those challenges.
Absolutely. So, okay. So, to the business side of things, because I think this is something that can get frustrated about myself when I look back at my journey. None of us are entrepreneurs when we get into this. Like we're not, let me take that back. We're all entrepreneurs when we get into this, but none of us are trained business people. We're not trained leaders and stuff like that. So that obviously is a passion that you have. What were some of the struggles that you had in your business, building your business, I think, coming up and learning how to be a business owner? Like what were some of the roadblocks and stuff that you ran into, the walls you ran into, and the lessons you had to learn?
Yeah. So I'm definitely not, I'm definitely prone to the same exact challenges that everybody else has faced. Like I came into this not expecting to like eventually like have this business and I have to lead people, and there's all these little obstacles that you need to kind of overcome as you grow. And I wasn't expecting any of that. So some of the challenges early on is, one, I'm like actually naturally resistant to systems. I do not like, I thrive like in chaos in some way. Like if I didn't have any structures in place, I'd just wake up and just do stuff willingly and it would feel amazing. Right. Am I breaking out? It says my internet's unstable.
Yeah, you broke a little bit there, but I think we caught that. So,
yeah, so most entrepreneurs have ADD,
Mm-hmm.
right? And you just like to take action and throw stuff against the wall and see what sticks without any routine or like structures in place. So I understood that about myself early on, I think, which was a just self-awareness is something I had to learn early on about like, where is my zone of genius? Where is my zone of weakness that I should stay clear from, and like bring people into my universe around me that can actually fill in those gaps. And um, like the sooner I can get out of like the day-to-day routine stuff, the better. So I think early on, one of the big mistakes is my partner and I were actually both the same personality types. So I had to sort of force myself into an implementer role because he was just busy doing deals and like talking to sellers and stuff. And it just felt very, I can brute force my anything. I think great entrepreneurs can typically like, if they have to step in, they can figure stuff out and like build a website or figure out the cold calling script and like figure out how to pull the list and use the tools. And I can't tell you how many random skills I have because of like the brute forcing. Like
Right.
I can do graphics designs and all this crazy stuff just because I had like brute forced my way through it, to the detriment of knowing that it wasn't going to be productive in the end for me to keep doing all this. So the biggest challenge when you start to have this self-awareness is learning how to let go
Mm-hmm.
without losing control of the outcome.
Right.
And I always saw systems as the secret sauce. This is like the antidote to this problem. Systems are just repeatable processes that other people can follow and deliver the same end result that you could. And it could take a bunch of different forms, right? It can be in the form of technology, in the form of a video training, in the form of a standard operating procedure inside of your company wiki,
Mm-hmm.
in the form of training, in the form of KPIs that you track. Like systems are just externalized processes that are extracted from your brain and put into a routinized structure for someone else to follow.
Right.
So I just became obsessed with that notion, like, because I knew that I was going to be able to eventually just, like, for instance, in InvestorFuse, there's no way that I could do customer support and lead InvestorFuse marketing and sales and like lead the team and do customer support. So that was the first thing we figured out how to get me out of. Another big lesson I learned was when you're growing a company and you're the visionary, you need an implementer
Mm-hmm.
that is like equal partners with you in the business. Like you're both equally invested into the growth of this business, because you can't, I don't know if you know Rocket Fuel, the Gino
Mm-hmm.
Wickman visionary implementer. Like it's no mistake that like some of the most successful companies of all time have that founder dynamic. It's like I was always playing offense early on, like just trying to kick up business. And then John, my CTO, who's the implementer, would play defense. And he would just make sure that everything was contained in structures and that there was process in place and that we had some sort of follow-up or next action to do after that, which I never like. It goes against my nature to do stuff like that. So you can't just play offense and expect to eventually break through in this business. You need to have sort of some defense in place, and systems can provide that defense for you.
Yeah, no, I agree 100%. So, and a lot of people in this industry, I think they overthink systems, like you mentioned, they're just boundaries,
Mm-hmm.
they're the, if this, then that happens scenario in your
Yeah.
business. And that's the important aspect of it for sure. So,
Mm-hmm.
um, so, um, okay. This is me being real here. So like I hired a
Yeah.
COO. She's doing a great job. She's learning my business. I'm a visionary. She's an implementer. Um, Being able to articulate or communicate my vision in a fashion that somebody can run with it, to really run with it, is a challenge, right? You see that being self-aware, you try to sit down and make sure you over explain things. I'm sure you had that challenge.
Mm-hmm.
how did you overcome that challenge? How did you just find somebody that understood you and read your mind, or did you have to stretch yourself out of your comfort zone to be able to clearly articulate the vision? Like what, or is that still a struggle?
It's a constant struggle, and the solution to it is being the first one to admit your own vulnerabilities and weaknesses. By doing that, other people will feel safe to come to the surface with their issues and problems. I think the biggest mistake that leaders make is they try to micromanage,
Mm-hmm.
or they are completely like distant. They're just like, here, just take it and run with it. I'm just gonna stay out of the way, and expect the person to do a really good job without coming to you for help.
Right.
So creating an environment or a culture for the people to come to you for help is actually how you can feel safer to let go of your vision. Relaying your vision is simple, right? You just describe the direction of the company. Like take some time to get clear on that unknown so that you can articulate it to your team. Make sure that they have the right resources in place to do their day-to-day stuff really, really well. And then from that point on, it's just being a coach to them and not a micromanager. So
Right.
if you, there's something called the accidental diminisher, which is a term from the book Multipliers. Really good book if you're into this stuff, leadership stuff. Accidental diminisher is a leader that's well intentioned, like not a malicious leader, not like a malevolent leader, but like a well intentioned person that like will outwork everybody and stay up super late, or try to come up with all the ideas on their own. Like all this stuff is well intentioned, but the accidental diminishing effect that it has on people is real. For instance, me constantly coming up with ideas early on, constantly having like new visions and new strategies to implement. And every time I did that, my whole team would have to come to a screeching halt, figure out what was going on in my brain. Then they'd have to like redirect energy to this new thing. And then the old thing that we were doing all of a sudden loses its steam. So even though like my intentions were good, just to innovate, by coming up with ideas all the time, I was actually slowing my team down. So it's sort of, there's all these, if you Google search accidental diminishers, there's like 6 different types of them. And I'm sure that's a lot of you might relate to at least one of these. Like I'm the idea guy for sure. And this is also, if you haven't hired anyone yet, it's really good to be aware of this so that you're not that person when you start to scale people up. And really the goal once you stop doing everything yourself and you're just managing people is to be their coach, just to make sure that they're doing their job really well, make sure they have resources, and make sure that they feel safe to come to the surface with questions and to admit any weaknesses and to be open to taking feedback from you.
You know, you dropped something there that I think that people really need to really listen to and pay attention to, because I think we all get hung up on being bottlenecks in our organization. That's one of the things I talk about a lot, is because I used to be a bottleneck, and you know, the buck stops with me and I make all the decisions thing and I control everybody and micromanage them thing is the biggest thing that I think plagues this business. But the accidental diminisher is something that I want to point out how important what you just said is in an organization, because I don't think I've ever thought about it at that level. You know, when you talk about throwing your idea into the mix and bringing your team to a screeching halt, you know, how much chaos are you creating in your organization? How much are you slowing them down? You know, by just getting in the way with the things that we do best, right? I mean, we're idea people, we're visionaries, and being self-aware enough to back off of that and let people do their thing, but on the level of not just not being a bottleneck and not just not micromanaging, but not interfering. I mean, that's huge. That's a huge thing to consider when you're running your organization, and to look at is how much is my day-to-day interaction, you know, putting a damper on my team. I just made a comment to somebody in my office that I personally felt like I was walking through sludge, and they're like, "What do you mean?" And I go, "I feel like we're doing a whole bunch of work and we're not getting very far in a certain project we're doing. But, you know, is that because of accidental diminishers in something I'm doing or other people in my organization, or is that another issue, that's something that needs to be fleshed out for sure. So I'm glad you dropped that, and hopefully people that are listening to this or watching this are paying attention to that term, because that gives a
Yeah.
whole new perspective, I think, to leadership in an organization. So
Yeah, because when you're constantly interfering, put yourself in their shoes, they're going to feel like you don't trust them to do their job well.
right.
So the more you probe in and ask and micromanage, the less trust is being built between you two.
Right.
And when you can let go and let them do their job really well and give them the space to make mistakes even, then they're going to trust you and they're going to get better at their job, much better than you could ever be, because they're doing that one thing, only doing that one thing. So it's super powerful to create an environment of trust when you start to bring people on. And even VAs, like VAs, you should think of as employees to your team, right? Just because they're working abroad and you're only talking to them on Slack doesn't mean that they'll fall into this culture that we're talking about. It's like everybody has a culture, whether it's just a team of one or a team of thousands of employees. The way you operate when no one is looking is your culture, and you need to be intentional about that. And that's something that we talk about all the time, and it's like part of your job as the founder is to create that environment.
Right. Very cool. Very good information. So
yeah.
Okay. What advice would you give somebody just starting out in this business? Like somebody who just basically had this wild idea, I want to start real estate investing. What's some advice you'd be willing to share?
Well, decide early on if you want to be an investor or a dealer. Most people think that wholesaling real estate is real estate investing. It's not. You're just like marketing for opportunities and then selling it to the actual investor that's going to be holding title, either holding onto the property for their own portfolio or flipping it, rehabbing it. So you need to decide early on if you want to be in the transactional business or if you want to build a business that has equity that can grow like a nest egg and your net worth. So I guess I ignored it naively because I just wanted to make large chunks of cash, which I'm sure a lot of people do. But it's the long-term thinking versus short-term thinking mindset. So you need to get clear on what is it that you really want. Do you want long-term sustainable wealth, which means constant income coming in? Or do you want to just like constantly be fighting for quick lump sums of cash? Now, some people thrive in that. Like some people are like my buddy Scott Bauer, he just loves doing deals. Like that's his zone of genius, is just like doing deals. No matter how big his company gets, he's still going to be in there doing deals, which is great. He understands that about himself. However, if you want to grow a business that eventually maybe you could sell one day, then you have to sort of think about what your strategy should be going in. Maybe you can be a wholesaler that gets good at finding opportunities, but your intention isn't to be a wholesaling company. It's actually to take those deals down and to grow your portfolio. I do think that wholesaling is a great entry point because it is a low risk way to like get in a transaction, but really get clear about what your end goal is moving forward and decide what business you want to be in. Do you want to be a dealer or do you want to own a business that has a value to it? Because unfortunately, as a wholesale business, you can't really sell your business. Maybe there's some assets you could sell, like your buyer's list or some of your processes. But ultimately, if you want a business and you want to increase your net worth, you need to start holding on to some of these properties or take the money you make and invest it into other assets. So I think it's just the short-term versus long-term thinking, like have an awareness around that going in. I don't think I had that when I first started.
All right. Very cool. Tell everybody how to get a hold of you. They want to reach out and learn more about what you got going on or just say hello.
Yeah. So you can find me on Facebook. Just type Dan Schwartz in, SCHWARTZ. I just launched like a new fan page or whatever, where I'm just sharing a lot of information and lessons learned, like as I grow my software company and some of the things that I see in the most successful real estate investing clients that we serve in InvestorFuse. So you can follow me there. If you have any specific questions about how to systemize and scale your business or hiring, or just if you want to pick my brain or anything, just email me at dan@investorfuse.com.
Very cool. All right, man. Well, I appreciate having you on today, and you added a ton of value. So thank you very much.
My pleasure, man. Thanks for having me.